Hey, it's Cairo. Welcome back to the channel, and these are the cards from Phyrexia All Will Be One that you need to know for when it releases in February. Your time is precious, my time is precious, let's get to it. First up, we have Vanish into Eternity. This is 1 white, 2 generic for an instant, exile target non-land permanent, but this costs 3 more to cast if it targets a creature. Now you might be thinking, this is 6 mana removal to remove a creature, so it's not going to be that great. But when we're talking about limited, there are a lot of impactful non-creature permanents in this set. Vanish into Eternity is going to be playable for sure in white in limited. It might even be one of the better removals in the set depending on how much of the meta is focused around non-creature permanents. 6 mana to exile a target creature is kind of on rate there, so we would expect to pay 5 or 6 for an exile. One of the really clutch plays of Vanish into Eternity is whenever you're playing an artifact equipment based deck in red and white. So they have this new 4 Myriad mechanic. Whenever they cast an artifact equipment, they generate a 2/2 rebel and they equip that equipment to it when it comes into the battlefield. Well, Vanish into Eternity can get rid of that artifact equipment and just leave that 2/2 token. Vanish into Eternity is a little bit better than it seems on its face, and I would watch out for it when you're playing in limited. Next up, we have White Sun's Twilight. This is double white and X to sorcery. You gain X life, and then you create X 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifact creature tokens with Toxic 1, and this creature can't block. And if X is 5 or more, destroy all other creatures. So not only is this a board wipe, but if you cast it for 7, which is doable with ramp, you get to create X little 1/1s that have Toxic and really have a nice board presence left over after you wipe the entire board to maybe close the game out then and there with just your Toxic little mites. This card is going to be an absolute limited bomb in white-blue based control. That's the archetype for limited here. It's also going to be probably pretty good in Commander. Lots of board wipes there. It's going to be good in other constructed formats. If it's a little bit slower format, Control's gotten a lot of nice tools from Phyrexia All Will Be One. So even in Standard, if we can slow the games down, White Sun's Twilight is a nice board wipe and a finisher all in one. And this card is going to be a bomb. Next up, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Elesh, Norn, Mother of Machines. This has been spoiled for a while now. Everybody pretty much thinks that it is good. I think it's a good card. I did a video where I said it's not as good as everybody thinks, but it is still very good, especially in limited, and it's a nice build around in constructed. It's 5 mana, 4/7 vigilance. It basically makes your triggered abilities of permanents you control enter the battlefield, trigger an additional time, and shuts down your opponents. To get maximum value off of Elesh, Norn, Mother of Machines, we want a lot of things entering the battlefield and having effects, and it seems like we are getting a lot of those things. As you'll see coming up soon here in the video, we have a lot of enchantments that trigger things. It's also going to be good in Standard with Wedding Announcement and things like that, although it does come down on turn 5, so a lot of the things that it triggers come down earlier than it, but it's still a good card and it's something to watch out for, especially whenever you have a deck that's based on things generating effects when they enter the battlefield, because it just shuts you down. So it's a very impactful card and something to be aware of and memorize before you go into the new format. Next up is the new Planeswalker at rare. It's 6 mana. It's the Eternal Wanderer. It's 5 loyalty, and no more than 1 creature can attack the Eternal Wanderer each combat, which is a nice way of protecting itself. The +1 can flicker things to get double the enter the battlefield or leave the battlefield effects of permanents that you control. It can also flicker out one of the opponent's biggest creatures at the end step, so that way you can start your turn without their biggest creature and it comes back later for them. It also creates a 2/2 white samurai creature with double strike. That's a clock in itself. -4 for each player. Choose a creature that player controls, and each player sacrifices all creatures they control not chosen this way. So you get to choose one for yourself and one for them and wipe the entire board. This is a very powerful card. It's a limited bomb. It's going to see play in Standard. It's going to see play in constructed and other formats. Very good, and knowing the abilities before you go into the new format is really going to help. Next up is Kemba, Kha Enduring. This is a 2-drop 2/2 cat cleric, which is actually pretty important that it's a cat. Whenever Kemba, Kha Enduring, or another cat enters the battlefield under your control, attach up to 1 target equipment you control to that creature. So this is made for the limited red and white equipment deck. It also has equipped creatures you control get +1/+1, so it's an equipment lord. It also has an ability 2 white, 3 generic to create a 2/2 white cat creature token. In Constructed, this is going to have the biggest effect in Modern with Hammer Time decks, where you do a Colossus Hammer on turn 1, then you put in Kemba and just automatically equip that Colossus Hammer to Kemba and make it like a 14/14 attacker or 13/13 or something like that. Absolutely crazy for Modern. This is going to be a 1-of for each of those decks, maybe 2. This is going to be a super solid pull if you're in red-white equipment and limited. And being able to create a 2/2 white cat at instant speed in response to an opponent's removal when they try to get rid of Kemba and equip an equipment to it is going to be really good tempo play, and it's a very good card. Next up is the white Dominus. There's a Dominus for each color. This is Mondrak Glory Dominus. It's a 4-drop, double white, 2 generic for 4/4 Phyrexian Horror at Mythic Rare. If one or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead, and 1 and double Phyrexian white mana, sacrifice 2 other artifacts and or creatures and put an indestructible counter on Mondrak Glory Dominus. First of all, this is a 4/4 body for 4. There is a limited mechanic in green-white that is toxic, go wide. There is no shortage of token generation in standard. There's no shortage of token generation in commander if you choose to build it that way or other formats. And the ability to give this thing an indestructible counter to sacrifice 2 artifacts, whether they're just like little, blood tokens, clue tokens, whatever, and or little 1/1 creatures is really, really insane. This is a very powerful card. It's going to be impactful for many formats. Mondrak is going to be playable in basically any white deck that makes tokens at even a mediocre level to heavily token-based decks. The value is just so incredibly high on Mondrak that, yeah, be prepared for it. Next up is Ossification. This is one of those enchantments that I was talking about where you can double their effect with Elesh Norn. This is 1 white, 1 generic for an aura, and it enchants a basic land that you control, which is an interesting design. And when it enters the battlefield, exile target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls until Ossification leaves the battlefield. So this is 2-drop planeswalker removal. There are ups and downs to it enchanting a basic land you control. First of all, you have to have a basic land. If you're running a control deck with tons of duels, it's going to be kind of hard to fit this in. It's a little bit awkward there. But it coming down on a basic land that you control means that your opponent can't flicker their creature and get rid of it and bring it back. So it's a little bit harder to interact with that it's on your own basic land. So it's pretty safe there. I think there are more upsides to it coming on a basic land than downsides. In limited, this is going to be great removal. This is premium. This is 2 mana, remove a creature or planeswalker, exile so they don't get death triggers, and you're going to have basic lands in limited. So Ossification is going to be limited staple. I feel confident in saying that. Next up, we have Planar Disruption. This is 1 white, 1 generic. It's an aura and enchants a creature or a planeswalker, but also the key here is it can hit an artifact as well. There are a lot of artifacts in this set that are very impactful, including the 4 Mirrodin equipments that generate tokens. Those are artifacts as well. You can put Planar Disruption on that. Can't attack, can't block, and activated abilities can't be activated. This is going to be premium removal in white limited. This is going to probably even see play in other white-based enchantment decks in constructed formats. So Planar Disruption is one to memorize. On the topic of token generation, we have Skrelv's Hive, which is a very hard to say card. 1 white, 1 generic for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, lose a life, create a 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifact creature token with Toxic 1, and this creature can't block. Corrupted. As long as an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, creatures you control with Toxic have lifelink. So this is a 2 mana investment that keeps generating you 1/1 mites every single turn. They can't defend, but when you're interested in swarming your opponent in green-white Toxic go wide and limited, this is going to be a bomb. This is going to be playable in other decks in constructed that want tokens and want to win with Toxic. And Skrelv's Hive is a very, very good card. I'm sure it's going to see play in standard and other formats. So that's it for the video today. Like I said, pretty quick and dirty. I appreciate you taking the time to check out this video. I hope it helps you when Phyrexia All Will Be One releases. If you have any questions, go down in the comments. If you have any suggestions for future videos, whatever, leave me a comment. I'll respond to you. Thank you for hitting that thumbs up. It's free. It helps support the channel, and subscribing. I appreciate all of you that have subscribed, and I wish you a great week ahead, and I'll see you next time.